All right, top of the hour here. Let's see how we get rid of some of this media for you. There we are. Now I can see myself on screen. I think that's it. We are good to go. Get my comments up here. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram. I think that's it. We're good to go. Top of the hour here, 3 p.m. Eastern. I may even have a hack. I do have a hack. Thank you for that, Ashley. I've got my phone on my daughter's account on Instagram. So now I can see your comments on Instagram because they don't show up on the StreamYard very well. Good afternoon from Lakeland, Florida. I wish I was there. Kevin, thank you for joining us. Where have I been? Scott, where have you been? Well, let me tell you, I've been busy. Traveling, courting. I'm just going to tell you a little story while we wait for people to join the live stream here. I've been in court with clients. My schedule hasn't been my own. Let me give you an example. Maybe 2 weeks ago. So I live in my house here. I won't tell you exactly where it is, obviously, but I had to travel to my closest city from this mountain, which is Calgary, Alberta. It takes me 3.5 hours. And I went there on a Tuesday evening so that I could speak on a Wednesday morning, which I did. I spoke on a Wednesday morning in Calgary at the Insolvency Insider. That's a Canadian media company. Let's call it that. Focus on bankruptcy, restructurings, turnaround. Really, really great job that they do there at a lenders conference, which means there was about 100 bankers, maybe 150 bankers, largely from Western Canada. And my topic was about turnarounds and restructurings and what lenders can do when they find in the early stages that a borrower is in trouble. And there was so much good content coming out of that. It was fantastic. I'm going to try to extract some of that content for you in future episodes here. But I spoke Wednesday morning. I got back here to my home office Thursday. Friday, I had some local meetings and then off again Sunday evening for a Monday flight to Montreal, where I was in court Tuesday morning with a client on a matter that I had to be there, to Toronto by midnight, 1 a.m. Tuesday night, meetings Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, flew to Berlin, speaking at the International Bar Association conference, which was in Berlin. And so I did that speech. I was the designated investor as opposed to lawyer. I was a designated investor, and it was on automotive restructuring. So I was covering North America, how the automotive industry works, the restructuring tools, and just the general state of the industry. So that was cool. Flew back Wednesday morning straight to Calgary for more meetings. And so I ask you, where in all that am I able to shoot a show? Well, I wasn't able to shoot a show, and that's just been going on for a month. So I am happy now to be back because, I meet people, we're having lunch and we're having drinks or dinner or whatever. And they say to me, "Hey, Scott, we love your podcast. I just love your podcast. I learn a lot. It's great to have somebody with some insight on what goes on in our world." And I say, thank you. But then I go away and I feel guilty because I know what I'm thinking to myself is, Scott, you're not doing your job. You're not shooting shows. So here we are. We're gonna start back into these Winning Momentum podcast weeks in review, plus some other content I have planned for you. So it's going to be fun. And we're going to try Monday afternoons. You may recall, if you were listening before, that we were doing largely Friday afternoons. And, it's summertime and, with the end of the week push and people off on holidays, we thought maybe we try Mondays. Maybe that'll be better for me. So we are good to go. We've given people lots of time to join us on the live stream. So welcome. Thank you for joining me in the Winning Momentum podcast, where we do, in part, what we do here is a week in review at Sinclair Range. I am Scott Sinclair, the founder and president of Sinclair Range, and the mission here is to give you some insight into what goes on every day at Sinclair Range. It's your window into real world deals and decisions and day-to-day business adventures. And we cover segments, lessons learned for the week, deal of the week, struggles of the week, and just general musings, what I am thinking about. If you are a listener to this show in the past episodes, you will know that I love DIP loans, debtor in possession loans. I have a history of doing them. I think they're a fantastic product. And what is that? Just for those of you catching up, let me just hang up on this phone call. There's a flaw to my Instagram hack. A debtor in possession loan is part of a formal insolvency. I'm going to express this in a Canadian context because, look, wherever in the world you're listening to this show, there's different legal jurisdictions, obviously, and different proceedings for court order restructurings and the way to finance those restructurings. And so I'm just going to tell you, but a DIP loan is sort of always the same. The nuance is different, so go get legal advice. But just in general, it's part of a formal insolvency proceeding where a court says, yeah, we agree with you, person making the applicant. We agree that this company needs some money to fund some professional fees and to affect the change in the restructuring that it needs to affect. And so we're going to approve a loan to the borrower, to the business, and that loan from a security perspective will rank ahead of all other creditors. A piece of real estate, it ranks ahead of the mortgages, it ranks ahead of property taxes, ranks ahead of the government in any other respect, obviously ranks ahead of unsecured creditors. And so it's terrific. That's what if you need the capital to push a business forward, it's a excellent and I think highly underused product, certainly in Canada. I've talked on this show before about Sapphire Global, a company that we advise that does high yield secured lending, including DIP loans. And I've talked about this and its DIP loan to Sirona Pharma, which I can mention because it's a part of doing a DIP loan often is it becomes part of the court record and therefore is public information and therefore I can talk about it. So Sapphire's owed right now about $2.5 million from Sirona. Sirona filed CCAA November 2025. CCAA is the Company's Creditors Arrangement Act in Canada. If you're in the US, think of it as Chapter 11. And it got this debtor in possession loan to have some working capital to meet the objectives of the restructuring, which were basically to calm everything down, stop people from suing, just put a pause on all stakeholder actions, and to, in this case, it is a cannabis company that had its license suspended for failure to do a lot of things, and it was able to rehabilitate itself and get its license reinstated, therefore creating a bunch of value. So that's all been successful. Now the business is being sold, and it's being sold by the monitor, and that will get Sapphire all of its money back plus its profit. So there's been a win all around. It's not done till the money's in the bank, obviously, but it's been pretty successful. But the lesson out of this is, the reminder of this is that businesses require capital to change. If you are a troubled business, you have to change. And if you have to change, that requires capital to turn around, to restructure, to create winning momentum. This is the Winning Momentum podcast. To create winning momentum, it takes some cash. It takes resources, both human and financial. Okay, not just financial, human and financial. But how do you attract that capital to do your turnaround, to do your restructuring, to do the change that you want to do? How do you attract that capital when you're stalled and you're already over levered? It's a chicken and egg thing. You've got a business, you know where you want to go with it. You've got a bunch of lenders and secured creditors against that business, and you're totally out of money. That's going on a lot in Canada right now. We are swamped on the advisory side with exactly that situation. So what do? It's a chicken and egg issue. Winning momentum attracts capital and human resources, right? Winning momentum, that positive energy, things are heading in the right direction. If you're looking for a job, if you're looking to invest in a business, do you want the one that just all the buzz is about and it's in the newspaper or all over social media and things are exciting and heading in a positive direction? Or do you want the one that's stagnant and going downhill? Which one do you want to invest in? Which one do you want to work in? You want to work and invest in the one with the positive momentum. But to create some momentum, which you can do, you can manufacture that. What do you need to do? Well, you need a little bit of capital, right? So it's a chicken and egg. Enter the DIP loan, the debtor in possession loan. It's a hugely underused financial product in my view. And And the problem with it, and the reason it's underused, is it has the stigma of you have to file for insolvency. You have to go to a bankruptcy court because it is the court order that prioritizes the loan over other lenders, right? And so as a borrower, as a business owner, you have to file, and to file, you have to say you're insolvent. And many business owners they see that as failure. They don't want that stigma. They think it's a bad idea, but they're wrong. It's a fantastic tool that should be used more often. And if you can fix your problems without going insolvent, obviously that's what you want to do. Okay, but if you can't, if you're in that chicken and egg, if you're stuck and you need some capital to affect change, and you have the right people and you have a plan and you're ready to go, consider a debtor in possession loan. What happens if we file? Sorry, let me give you an example before I head into that. I don't want to give too many details yet because we've just accepted this new client. I'm trying to think here about what I can tell you, but we've just accepted this new client. It's a real estate development firm, and it has a lot of potential value, and they spent a lot of money already. It already has significant value, but a lot more. But the project is stalled. They've run out of funding. They can't raise more money. They're struggling with various government approvals, which is why they've run out of funding. So the project's just kind of stalled. And now we're at the point where senior lender defaults are becoming a real risk. Okay, that's all I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to give you any specifics. But what happens in that scenario with that fact set? If we say, hey, let's file for bankruptcy protection, what are the restructuring tools available to the company in whatever jurisdiction it might be? I haven't even told you that. And we do a small debtor in possession loan for this company. That way, we can just calm everything down. Like I said on Serona, we can get the stakeholders to chill out and be stayed, and we can put some working capital in the company to relaunch operations, to get us from here to there, to create some value, and to buy some time while the approvals that are required come through. Well, what happens if we were to do that for very, very little money on a debtor in possession loan that is grossly oversecured because of the value of the real estate? Well, I'll tell you what happens. What happens is we create $100 million plus of value on this particular project. That's what happens. And obviously, if we can solve this problem without an insolvency, if we can just go borrow money, that's what we're going to do first and foremost. But if we can't, then this debtor in possession loan is an actionable plan that is almost bulletproof. You don't want to assume too many things. There's lots of little risks and arguments in court that you may or may not lose if you end up in the wrong position or in the wrong court or what have you. But the bottom line is, it's bulletproof as it's going to get in that particular situation. And by the way, if you're a lender, let's switch hats from a borrower to a lender at this point. And as I said, there's few of these lenders in Canada that do these sort of debtor in possession loans. What do you think as a lender you can charge for a small advance of a few $1,000,000 that creates for the borrower, say, $100 million of value? Do you think there will be a huge debate over the cost of capital? Will there? Remember, lenders, the onus is on you to create these deals, to create this product. No one comes to you as an intermediary or as a borrower and says, here's a transaction we like, and you can get a tremendous amount of value over and above your normal lending box. If you want to learn more about that, just reach out to me. So creating winning momentum in a business requires capital. We just discussed that. But before that capital, I'm moving on to another topic here. The number one rule on Scott's list of the 10 ways to turn around a business, number one rule is to accept the need to change. You have to accept that what you're doing isn't working. Doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. We all know what that is. I won't be so predictable. Being the victim is not going to help you. You have to change what you're doing. You have to change the people. You could augment them. Doesn't mean you have to fire a bunch of people. You can get different skill sets in. You can get some advisors. You have to do something different. You have to convince stakeholders, which would include your investors and your bank, that things are changing. So here's an interesting question. What happens if you don't change anything as a lender and an investor and you just give them more money? What happens then? This has always been my message to private lenders, those in the high yield private credit space, is that you can't just give the same management team more capital. Something has to change. You can't just give them more cash, because the pitch from the borrower to a private credit high yield lender is always, this happened, I didn't get this contract, something's coming through, it's all going to change shortly. I'm not changing anything I do. I'm not enhancing my team. I'm not putting in better reporting, internal controls, whatever. I'm not changing anything, but it's all going to change once I have, for the positive, once I have your cash. That's always the pitch. That is not acceptable if you are a lender. At Sinclair Range, we have many, many, many examples in the last few months since I have last talked to you about investors that have over advanced and provided too much capital to borrowers without dealing with the change that is required to turn around that business. In the lending world, it comes in the form of over advances. An over advance is you've loaned more money to the borrower than you have security for. So if the whole security package is worth $100 and you loan them $110 on your security value of $100, in other words, if you liquidate, you can get $100 out. Well, that's a $10 over advance in that example. And the problem with, and it is the same with investing, by the way, in the equity world, but in the lending world, the problem with these over advances, apart from being unsecured, 10% in the example that I just gave you, is that one of the risks of over advancing is that you can't stop. So you've over advanced $10, company spends the $10, it didn't quite work out, I just need another $5 more. So now you're 15% over advanced, and you keep over advancing because once you've done it, you need to do it again to save the first one. We had a lending client not so long ago that had, and it's not who you think it is, had over 90% of their portfolio was over advanced for that very reason. Once you just dip your toe into it, you just can't stop. Basically, what you end up doing as a lender is you're putting out equity risk at debt rates. Equity risk at debt rates. That's not a good business plan. In the end, what you want is to put out debt risk at equity rates. That's kind of dip lending. In the equity world, it's similar. If you're an investor and you just keep plowing in new money after old money because the plan hasn't worked and you need to save the old money, that's where you get into trouble. And we have a client right now who I bet you 3-4 months from now, they're going to write off hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars because they stepped into that very position. Great to see all the people who have joined us here live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and Instagram. Say hi in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions, and we will try to address them. If you are an investor and a lender, do not provide more capital than agreed without trying to affect some level of change. If management hasn't come to you when they come hat in hand for the more cash, they need to tell you what they're going to change. And it can't be that they're a victim, okay? So just be aware of that. And also, this came from the lenders conference I referred to earlier, boots on the ground cannot be replaced. You can't just accept the representation of the change, send somebody out there. That's what we preach to our lending clients all the time. Boots on the ground. When you walk into a troubled business, you can feel the winning momentum, the positive energy, the excitement in that business. You can feel losing momentum, negative energy, the sense that every day is going to be worse than it was today. You can feel that as well. Boots on the ground. It's the best way to do that. You know, part of what we do on this show that we can review at Sinclair Range is we talk about the Sinclair. Look, the premise to the show here, I described originally, let me start there, is that I was sick for quite a while, over a year, I don't even remember, a couple of years ago now. And while I was gone, a lot of things fell apart in the firm. And the show is about the rebuilding of Sinclair Range. It is about bringing you on this journey, which is going very well, by the way. The rebuilding has gone terrific. However, one of the segments on this show is some struggles, some challenges we are facing. And one of those challenges, which I will talk to you about right now, is that the primary value in Sinclair Range, apart from the advisory side of the business, which generates the day-to-day, but the real wealth is tied up in three key assets, two of which are real estate, all of which have environmental issues, manageable, quantifiable, but still some environmental issues. The plan, I may have described this to you before in previous episodes, was to liquidate this real estate. There's way more value there than the balance sheet requires. So it allows us to clean up the balance sheet entirely and to start buying additional assets and to put more money out in private credit and DIP loans. That's the master plan, apart from building the advisory side, as we always do, and which is going really, really, really well. So having these deals firm under contract, these two pieces of real estate, and then not closing, which is what happened on both pieces of real estate, and throwing them into litigation, that was not the plan. That was not the plan that we had. So, it hasn't gone to plan, but this is the exact type of problems that we have to solve for our clients on a regular basis. And what we're doing now is just living the hard version of this ourselves. Same math, same playbook, our own balance sheet. There are solutions. I know what they are. So stay tuned on this. This is just a full disclosure part of this show, because that's, as you know, if you've listened before, is what we tried to do. So I'm working on alternatives. I was on that all last week. And, the value of these assets effectively captures the equity value of this entire firm for the last decade. And so it's kind of important. Now, we're great without them because the rebuild on the advisory side has gone so well. But to level up, we need to do something about these assets. And that's what I'm working on. Musings, things that I'm thinking about. Well, with my schedule not being my own, I haven't been doing these shows, as you know. We also haven't been doing the Inner Circle. Do you remember the Inner Circle? The Inner Circle is a bi-weekly Zoom meeting of entrepreneurs, investment bankers, intermediaries, capital providers, both debt and equity, other interested parties. And it's an hour long every other Tuesday. And we hear pitches. Entrepreneurs come in and give a pitch for capital. They get educational business advice on that. Sometimes they get a deal done. We discuss other challenges and business topics. It's been great. And I let that slide as well. I shouldn't say we. Hang on one second. Sorry about that. So I let that slide as well. So stay tuned. If you're interested in the Inner Circle, which many of you are because you send me DMs and emails, there'll be a relaunch email coming out shortly on that, and hopefully with some fresh ideas on that property. So I haven't done any of that, but I'll tell you what I have done. Is I've been doing a number of basically of shorts for YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, but basically 1 minute selfies. I just hold my camera up. I'm driving. I may have a hat on. I may not be shaved for the day. And I just give some of my thoughts on Canadian politics. Now, those that know me know that I've been a huge Scott Adams fan. He's now deceased. But his books, his podcasts, other content, all focused on persuasion and critical thinking. I've been a huge fan and a follower of Scott for years and years and years until he passed. He literally died logging in to do a live stream. I mean, that's how committed this guy was. And so many people think that Scott Adams, his content was about Trump and about US politics, but that would be wrong. That's not what his content was about. His content was about persuasion and critical thinking. But what he did do was he preached always that you have to go where the energy is to create momentum. You have to be where the energy is in your life, in your business, profession, anything you're doing. If you're not where the energy is, you're going to miss out. You're not going to reach your potential. And so what was he doing? Well, the energy in Scott's days, and I think still, is in politics. That's where it is. So Scott used politics as a backdrop to teach his concepts, not to talk about politics. Politics is the framework, is where the energy is. His content was his content. So that's an important distinction. And I, on the Winning Momentum podcast and his predecessor, have never really done that. We've just done our thing, talked about what we wanted to talk about, And the viewership has been fine. Sometimes it's been great, but in the grand scheme of things, really not very much. Not very much in the like for the internet. In the grand scheme of things, we haven't had a lot of viewership. What we do get is it just shortens the sales cycle to nothing. Meaning, I meet somebody new, like I said at the beginning, I have lunch or a couple of drinks. Scott, we love your podcast. We love everything you have to say. Now I'm an expert, right? I'm in the sales cycle. The credibility issue is no longer an issue. And so that's really what the content has been for, apart from adding some value to your businesses and lives, I would hope. But it wasn't about strict viewership. Well, these 1-minute videos, these selfies that I'm doing while I'm walking around the airport or whatever, do the same thing as Scott Adams was doing. I hope they go to where the energy is. Let me give you an example. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, I'm saying into my selfie, said this, that, and the other thing the other day. He put X $100 million into a graphite mine in Quebec. It was at a ribbon cutting. And then I would say, here's some things that you don't know about that graphite mine and a different way to think about it and why we won't be producing EV batteries in Quebec anytime soon. Okay? I'm not saying that Prime Minister Mark Carney is a failure or that he's a piece of crap or that you should vote for the other guy. It's not that at all. Everybody in the comments interprets it to be that way, but that's not what it is. It is first principle thinking applied to a situation where the energy is. So how's that going for me? Well, I started in late April, I think. I've been doing 1 video a week, maybe 3 videos a week. If I've just been driving a long time and I have time to think about something, I have zero preparation. I don't write a script. It's literally, I do a 1-minute video into my iPhotos, and then I just upload it to Instagram. We're averaging 50,000 views per video. We've had a total of 200,000 unique views in the last couple of months, and the engagement is insane. Around 20,000 interactions, several thousand profile visits, 2,500 shares, and 1,000 saves. These are people that thought it was important. 1,000 saves. People thought, oh, that's so interesting. I'm going to hit save so I can go back and listen to that again at some other point in the future and then share it with somebody. Blows me away. I'm humbled. Go to where the energy is always if you need to expand your reach. That's what you should be doing. Thank you, everybody, for listening. How did we do on time? 29 minutes, 39 seconds. I want to do a 30-minute show, so I nailed that. Reach out to me, to us, in the notes, by email, wherever you want to go. Check out sinclairrange.com. If your company is going through transition, that could be high growth, that could be financial distress, we are here to help you. We can, as I said, navigate high growth. We can deal with financial distress. If you're doing deals, let us know. If you're looking to borrow private credit, let us know. Thanks for listening, and we will talk again next week. Now I have to remember how to turn all of this off. Let's see here.